The Ravens are cooking something big, and after what we just saw against the Vikings, I think we're starting to see exactly what this team could become. Baltimore is now 2-0 in the preseason. They've only allowed 10 points in 2 games. The offense is flying around. The defense is flying around. Joe Fagnano continues to make a case for a backup quarterback depth spot other than Tyler Huntley, and there are still some major questions that are starting to get answered for the Baltimore Ravens. But there are also a bunch of things that need to be cleaned up prior to week 1 of the regular season, and we're going to break it all down on Ravens Digest. But before we get into today's video, I want to give a quick PSA. The Cincinnati Bengals Digest channel is at 5.3K subscribers. There is no way, no reason why the Cincinnati Bengals Digest channel should have more subscribers than a Baltimore Ravens Flock Nation channel. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. It is completely free, no price, no cost at all. And we are providing daily Baltimore Ravens updates, rumors, all things Baltimore Ravens. You guys are not going to want to miss out on any of those uploads. And make sure to also turn on post notifications so you never miss a Baltimore Ravens upload. But in terms of the Baltimore Ravens and that debut that they had against the Vikings in that second preseason game, the Baltimore Ravens' biggest impact, in my opinion, was from the defensive side of the ball. And the Baltimore Ravens defense is starting to really look scary and dominant. Because yes, the Baltimore Ravens won that game 13-3, and after 2 preseason games, the defense has only allowed 10 points. But this is not something that you should completely ignore just because it is the regular season. Yes, the Baltimore Ravens also recorded 5 sacks, had multiple turnovers, and made life really difficult for the Minnesota Vikings throughout the entirety of the night. And this comes after what we saw that entire week with the joint practices with the Baltimore Ravens, traveling to Minnesota and practicing with them the entire week prior to the game, the preseason game against the Minnesota Vikings, of course. So this isn't just a random preseason performance where this is their first reps against the Vikings. We have seen them working all week, and Jesse Minter's defense is playing really fast and really physical, creating pressure against these quarterbacks, with J.J. McCarthy having a very tough time. And it is exactly what the Baltimore Ravens need heading into the regular season and to be prominent in their case on having a great 2026, 2027 season. But the biggest thing for the Baltimore Ravens and their defense, in my opinion, that I've been monitoring is that edge department, with Mike Green having a great case and a great showing during the game against the Minnesota Vikings. And he's continuing to show why the Baltimore Ravens are really excited about his potential. Because yes, he recorded a sack, but it is not just about the sack as a whole. Green is one of those younger players with extreme upside and has a huge athletic ability, and it was seen the second he was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. And now with Trey Hendrickson on the other side of the ball, it does not mean that the Baltimore Ravens need Mike Green to become a 20-sack guy immediately. This is not the case, as the defense is building towards what Anthony Weaver's identity is going to be heading into the regular season, and they need Mike Green to be somebody that offenses have to account for on a play-to-play basis outside of Trey Hendrickson and Zion Young in the pass rush. And if Green can do this opposite to Hendrickson, the pass rush for the Baltimore Ravens could be really dangerous, and I'm very excited to see them become a serious problem going into the 27 season. But as we talked about the other pieces in the edge room, Trey Hendrickson has been having a great addition in camp towards the Baltimore Ravens and their defense, and he was causing a lot of problems during their joint practices against the Minnesota Vikings. He was giving Christian Darrisaw issues, and what we've already seen from Trey Hendrickson shows what he's been doing and why he is such a capable player in his career. And yes, the Max Crosby trade did fall off, but Trey Hendrickson is a perfect addition to the Baltimore Ravens. And if you look at his time as a Cincinnati Bengal, he was a very prominent piece for the Bengals defense, played for them in that little Super Bowl run, and I think that he could really have a great season. And he's already had 4 seasons with 10 sacks, so I wouldn't be surprised if 2026-27 is the season that he has his 5th 10-sack season. And here's why. The coverage scheme of Jesse Minter works in a way where quarterbacks are going to have to hold the ball way longer than they want to, and when the quarterbacks hold the football way longer than they want to, Trey Hendrickson, Mike Green, and these other defensive pieces are going to get home on these offensive linemen. And this is where the defense can really start cooking for the Baltimore Ravens, and they did a really good job against the Minnesota Vikings in terms of this. But the Baltimore Ravens in that defense, as we know, are capitalist pieces, and the secondary looks ready for the regular season, especially Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins throughout that entire week. They looked outstanding going against Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and yes, both of those receivers did have really good plays in practice, but both of them bounced back, and Nate Wiggins especially doesn't look like a person who was recently dealing with an injury earlier in training camp. he's been right at home making plays again, and this is huge for the Baltimore Ravens going into the regular season because we need Marlowe and we need Nate Wiggins to both be healthy and playing at a high level to where the Baltimore Ravens have a very strong foundation in this department. And when we have Kyle Hamilton at his full ability alongside Malachi Starks on the back end in his second year, there's a lot of talent for the Baltimore Ravens. And in terms of talent, I'm also very impressed by the cornerback room for the Baltimore Ravens, whether it's Keandre Jackson. But in this scenario, Chandler Rivers, we've made a previous video about him. The 5th round rookie continues to have a really, really good summer. And that is important because the Baltimore Ravens cornerback room is very deep. And Rivers does not need to be a starter on week 1. But if somebody gets hurt, Chandler Rivers is a player who is going to have to step up, whether it is him or Keandre Jackson. And they need to step in without completely changing the identity of what Anthony Weaver wants to do on the defense. And Rivers is really making it interesting on a week-to-week basis. And he had a really good game against the Minnesota Vikings in the second preseason game. And it just gets interesting more and more every week. And I'm very excited to see what he can do going into the regular season. But on the offensive side of the ball, when we flip to that, yes, we know Lamar Jackson is our quarterback for the long-term future, and Snoop Hundley is the 2. But Joe Fagnano is really a player who is starting to separate himself in that QB3 department and maybe could push towards a QB2 spot because he went 15 for 20 for 123 yards and a touchdown and did not turn the ball over once. And through 2 preseason games, he's 37 for 48 with 327 yards, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. And this is extremely efficient. I don't think the Baltimore Ravens have seen somebody in this quarterback room come in and command the offense in this comfortable way in a very long time. And this is the biggest thing I've noticed about him. He doesn't really look scared. He's not overwhelmed, and he's making very accurate throws, and he's giving the Baltimore Ravens a reason to put him on the field. And the touchdown of the day was that 8-yard connection to LaJohntay Wester, who was wide open and had his first NFL receiving touchdown outside of him being used in a punt situation and in a kick situation. And that brings me to that young player of LaJohntay Wester who had a really good day in the receiving department, and he was making noise. 5 receptions, continuing to show that he's not just a kick returner or a punt returner. And this is important because a lot of the Baltimore Ravens receivers are really competing for opportunities, whether it is Jacoby Lane, Elijah Surratt, Devontae Walker, LaJohntay Wester. There is a competition brewing in that wide receiver room, and with the situation of Rashad Bateman, Wester is really giving the coaching staff another name to seriously consider in getting more opportunities within that wide receiver department. But with the Baltimore Ravens offense, the biggest thing that we know is the Danny Pinter situation, and the dust has not settled just yet in this situation. And now it is really about Jovan Gwynn and Ethan Pocic. Gwynn has never started in an NFL game, but he has a major advantage. He knows Ledford's system during that time of him being an Atlanta Falcon, and Minter talked about the way that Gwynn understands and how he wants him to play in the Baltimore Ravens scene. But then there's Ethan Pocic. Ethan Pocic has the experience. He's already been a starting center in the league for the Browns. And yes, he's coming off of that Achilles injury, but the question is, can he handle the workload that the Baltimore Ravens need him to provide on the offensive sense? And this is why him playing so close ahead of this 3rd preseason game against the Washington Commanders is going to be something that I'm really watching closely to see that center competition ahead of these player cuts. But the biggest thing in terms of the offensive line, as we know, time and time again, is protecting Lamar Jackson. It is the biggest pass scenario and the biggest necessity for the Baltimore Ravens to be successful going into this upcoming season. Ronnie Stanley is coming back, and we know that he knows that the offensive line needs to improve against these blitz packages and these other pass rush scenarios. And is very, very important because during this reps of the last week, they got to go against that Brian Flores defense, and Brian Flores gave Baltimore a ton of pressure. We've talked about how excellent Lamar Jackson's been throughout the entirety of camp and how much potential the Baltimore Ravens have with Declan Doyle at the helm now. But none of this matters if Lamar Jackson doesn't have a clean pocket every time he drops back into coverage. But if Lamar Jackson has a clean pocket, the Baltimore Ravens are going to cook going into this upcoming season, as we know, because yes, the Baltimore Ravens do have Zay Flowers. Yes, that situation with Rashad Bateman is still underway, and Jacoby Lane has been developing over the past 2 to 3 preseason games, and we have Mark Andrews and Derrick Henry to respect in the run game. So it's a lot to deal with at once for NFL defenses, and the O-line just has to give that chance for the Baltimore Ravens to make it work on the offensive side of the ball. But on the defensive side of the ball, as we keep talking about it, that game against the Vikings really showed me something that was impressive in terms of Silas Waters. These other players like Mike Green, Rashawn Benny, Keandre Jackson, all of these players are contributing. And as we talked about, Silas Walters intercepting Max Brosmer on a route. And this is the type of defensive depth you want to see from the second or third string guys. You're not relying on one player to make a play. And yes, Marlon Humphrey and those guys are our best players, but you need other players to step up in these championship level teams. And different guys are creating turnovers. It's very exciting to see. And the Baltimore Ravens are building a defense that can win late games and also prevent offensive teams for putting points on the board. But the biggest picture of the Baltimore Ravens and my takeaways against this Vikings preseason game, we're 2-0. The record doesn't matter, obviously, but the defense has only allowed 10 points. The younger pass rushers are really making plays. Joe Fagnano looks very, very impressive in that quarterback department, and the O-line has to get better against the pressure, and the center competition is going to be huge going into this preseason game against the Commanders. But yes, the offense needs to find their rhythm, as we know. And when I say the Baltimore Ravens are cooking something big, I'm not saying that everything is perfect. We know what we're good at. It is August. We're heading into September, only a week or two away. And this is exactly what we need to see heading into the regular season. But right now, the Baltimore Ravens defense does look very legit. And if Lamar Jackson gets out there and the offense can get the protection figured out on the front side, Baltimore is going to have a very, very interesting situation on their hands going into the regular season. But that is going to be all for today's episode of Ravens Digest. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new. We really appreciate all the support and love that you guys are showing us. Every single video, Flock Nation, it does mean a lot. And make sure you turn on post notifications so you never miss a Ravens Digest upload. Love making these videos for you guys, and I really appreciate you guys tuning in. But until then, my name's Alassane. I'll see you in the next one. And until then, Ravens Flock always.